All right, welcome to episode 32 of APS Radio. I am joined by Captain Chris Moore of Chesapeake, Virginia Fire. Good afternoon to you.
Hey Jim, how you doing today, brother?
I'm good. You know I'm good because I've already been talking to you for over 50 minutes before we finally decided to hit the record button.
Great conversation, man. I feel like I've known you forever, dude.
I know, and we should have just started and hit record from the start.
I
We
think that,
we blew it.
yeah, that would have been amazing. I think everybody would have got a lot
You
out of our
you
conversation
guys
at the end.
you guys missed out on so much, I'm telling you. So we're going to try to recreate it here.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
So, I don't really have an agenda. It's just a topic is just really behavioral health and the fire service. And I think you and I have both. I mean, there's a lot of parallels. Um, first of all, we're both really good looking men. We have to
That's
put that
right.
out there for those people that are listening out there and that can't see us. But uh, I'm just kidding. At least for me, I'm
No,
really. Anyway.
you're not kidding. We're good looking.
Okay, yeah. But trying to be humble here, Chris. But man, we both have been in some dark places, and we both have climbed out of that, and we got the light there. It's so if you will, I'm just going to give it to you, like just kind of sum up that journey of just where you were in the fire service, where things went wrong, and then how you got built back up. And we'll have conversations in between all that stuff. I'm going to try not to step on your toes or anything, but I want you to kind of share your story if you don't mind.
Yeah. Just a brief background. I grew up the son of a police officer, so public safety has always been in my family and in my blood. And I started in 1993 in the city of Virginia Beach, where I live, as a volunteer firefighter. I did that for 7 years. And constantly, every chance that I got, I was showing up at the firehouse and doing the work and just taking in everything that I could. And eventually, I ended up getting offered a job by the city of Chesapeake, Virginia. It's a neighboring city right next door, and that was in 2000. And that's where I currently serve now as a career firefighter, and I'm a captain right now in charge of an engine company. So I've been doing it for 30 years. Grew up with it, like I said, with my father. And one of the things that was always kind of taught to me, and it's kind of where I went wrong and where a lot of us go wrong, is one more thing about my dad, though, too, is he was a Vietnam veteran as well. He was in the Marine Corps in Vietnam. And where I kind of went wrong was it was instilled in me, starting, I guess, from my father, and then everybody pretty much everybody I encountered in the first responder world when I got into it in the early 90s. We still predominantly had that suck it up, buttercup attitude, and that we couldn't show true emotions. And I was taught that. I was taught to have the dark sense of humor. And you deal with things, and you don't always talk about things. My dad also instilled in me, which, not talking shit about my dad or anything. My dad was a great man and did a lot of great things, but it was the whole, you're protecting your family by keeping work at work. Don't bring it home. He wouldn't bring it home as a law enforcement officer. And when I got into the fire service, that was some of the advice that really stuck with me, that he gave me, is leave work there. You're going to see and do a lot of troubling things, but you got to shield everybody. You can't bring that stuff home. And that was the mantra that I always went by for the longest time in my career. And I thought that it was healthy doing that because I'm protecting my loved ones. And I didn't realize how much not talking about it was affecting me, because I wasn't talking to my family about it. And like I said, with the whole suck it up, this is what we do mentality that was really prevalent at the time, we wouldn't really talk seriously about the um, events that would unfold on a shift. And it was just not very healthy. I ended up finding out. I use the analogy. I know there's a lot of people out there that use this and have heard it, but that are heads. And I know this is a pretty big head right here, but it's like a bucket. And every time we're exposed to a trauma, it goes into the bucket. And if we don't have some kind of a healthy form of coping, a healthy coping mechanism to start releasing some of that stuff that's going into the bucket, every trauma is going to keep building up until eventually it overflows. And when it overflows, it's not always a pretty sight. You and I know firsthand, and I think everybody listening out there can relate to this. And to put that in context, the statistics for the average person in a lifetime will see usually between 3 and 5 traumatic events in a lifetime. We can see that in one shift, and you factor that in to a 20, 30. We even have guys doing over 40-year career in the fire service. And um, I say fire service, but first responder community. And that's a lot of stuff that we're seeing and we're being exposed to. So I didn't have the healthy coping mechanisms. Like I said, I started in 93, became career in 2000, and it was 2017 that my bucket overflowed. And it was a pediatric call, which it seems like pediatric calls resonate with a lot of us a lot harder than most calls. And I've run a lot of pediatric calls prior to 2017. But like I said, that's the one that finally made my bucket overflow. And afterwards, I got back to the firehouse, and we were doing like a CISM model at the time. And regardless of people's thoughts on CISM or peer support or whatever, my personal on CISM is I didn't like it and didn't agree with that. I don't think, for me, it doesn't work. It might work great for other people, but I just choose not for myself, because all I've ever seen with it and experienced myself is we get everybody in the room and you go around, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Well, with that stigma that we have, of course everybody's going to say they're okay when it's their turn to be questioned, because we all think, and I don't know, it started way before I ever came into the fire service, but we all think we have that S on our chest. And a lot of that is added stressors that's put on us from the outside world looking in at first responders that say that we're heroes and this and that. Well, we're not. And we all had that mentality. So when the chief went around and asked us, we all said we were okay. And all right, that concludes this. You guys have a good rest of your shift. So we did what we always do. And when the tones went off, we jump on the rig and run the next call. Well, that night when I was in my my bunk, when things finally settled down, I started having just intrusive thoughts about that call. Just I would close my eyes and just it was like I was right back hours earlier at that call, and I was like, man, what's going on here? And when I finally did get a chance to fall asleep, that's when dreams from calls that were over 15 years earlier started popping up in my head, and that I had never thought twice about. Those calls were just coming up and I was reliving them like I was right there. And it started scaring the crap out of me. I got off shift that morning, and just in my everyday life when I was off from the firehouse and I would go to bed that evening, these thoughts were popping up in these past calls. And this continued on and on and on for, it was 4 months, because it was April that year. I literally thought I was going crazy. Like I said, this was 2017. I had heard about post-traumatic stress, but I didn't think it was me and anything that I could have had. The reasoning I say that is right here where I live in Virginia Beach, a huge military town. All I knew about post-traumatic stress was stuff you hear in the news, or you can read in some books or publications at the time, where it mostly references the military. God bless our veterans coming back from overseas, defending our freedoms and everything, and all the stuff that they're exposed to. That's post-traumatic stress. If it's a first responder, then either they were involved in a line of duty death or a near miss or an officer involved shooting or something like that to qualify or to be post-traumatic stress. I had no clue that it was just being exposed to the calls and everything that we were on. And I literally thought I was just, something happened to me and I just snapped and I was going crazy. I equate it to, for us older guys that remember the good old horror flicks back in the 80s and 90s, Nightmare on Elm Street.
I'm still scared of that stuff, Chris.
I, I was literally getting to the point where I was afraid to go to sleep, and I would not sleep because of the dreams and actually, I don't want to say dreams, the nightmares I was having in the night terrors. My family, they didn't know what Chris was coming home. They didn't know what was going on. They just thought that something just turned me into a bigger jerk. They used the term that they were walking on eggshells, and just started, I was disassociating myself from them and other family and friends. But my wife and son, they weren't too worried about me disassociating myself from them because I was just being such a big jerk. They were welcoming the fact that dad would just go hibernate in the bedroom, or my wife actually ended up telling me afterwards that she would pray that I would get picked up for an overtime shift so I wouldn't be home, or I would go to a conference or training event and be away from home. And when you hear all stuff like that, it's, I mean, it really hits hard, but I never knew that until way after the fact. Well, like I said, we're 4 months later, we're into towards the end of April, and somebody just noticed within the department, saw me one day at a function while we were on duty, and noticed that I wasn't my normal self. And they reached out to me, and this is a prominent figure within my organization, and they took me out to lunch the next day, and we had a very open, honest, and candid conversation. And this was somebody who's been doing this career for a lot longer than I have and has more bugles than I have. And he gave me permission to just speak to him like you and I are speaking right now. It wasn't firefighter to officer. It was just two guys having a conversation. I opened up and told him everything that was going on. He gave me a bunch of great advice. He knew my family, and he asked if I ever share calls or anything with my family. Do I ever vent? And I don't. I never did, and I told him that. And he's like, you need to talk about these calls, obviously not violating any HIPAA rules, laws, or regulations, but just share your feelings with your family. And then he also advised me to explore my faith if that's something that I was big in. And he told me that I would be surprised to know the number of people that are going through the same stuff that I was going through right then at that moment. And told me that a lot of people that we see walking down the hallways of administration or in the firehouse, when we greet them each morning or whenever it is during the day, and they have a big smile on their face. He's like, you'd be surprised the guys that have that big smile on their face that are actually hurting inside and struggling like I was in that moment. So I walked out from that lunch meeting with a good sense of relief and feeling better. Had a heart to heart with my wife and son that evening. And I thought I was fixed just from one lunch meeting. I was like, holy shit, I am good. And just went on with life, and everything was great. I was still having some nightmares and everything, but they did, for some reason, with just talking about it, getting it out there, they did tone down a little bit for probably about 6 months or so. And then they just started picking up because I was still getting exposed to the trauma, even though I was talking to my family about certain things. Now I was still getting exposed, and I never really or truly got any professional help. So it ended up turning into using that internal drugstore and self-medicating and doing things that gave me like a dopamine rush to make me feel good in the moment, because I was feeling so horrible all the time. And some of the things that I turned to was I turned to alcohol, and I wasn't doing it to get drunk. I was doing it to try and help me fall asleep, because I had trained my body not to go to sleep because I was afraid of the nightmares and how I was being haunted by everything. So I started drinking, and uh, another thing that I was doing, I was spending money that I didn't have. That's another vice that I'm finding out from talking to other first responders. That's actually a very big thing that we do, because it made me feel like a really good, cool dude, a lot cooler than I was. If I could take my guys when we got off shift one morning, take them to Top Golf or somewhere and pick up the tab, all the beers and the games and all that. And then the tab comes and I pick it up and they're, oh, hey, Captain, thank you. We appreciate that. And um, I felt like that was things that made me just feel better about myself. And then the third thing is I actually would reach out for trying to think of a good way to put this, but it was, I don't want to say it was a full sexual addiction, but I looked for intimacy. Even though I was married, I looked for intimacy and acceptance from women in the wrong places. Instead of reaching out for it and bettering what I had at home, I was trying to get that quick fix and that quick um, feeling of acceptance and love from other people. And it really spiraled me even lower and deeper down into that dark place that we're talking about. I was just at my wit's end. And a year later now, towards the end of summer in 2018, I remember that I had a mentor in the fire service and within my department. He had told me in the past that he had a number to a therapist that works with first responders. And I finally reached out to my mentor and got that information. Well, getting the information and making the phone call, there was probably about a 2-month interval there. I just couldn't bring myself to make the phone call. And then one day, I was just really, really struggling. And at that moment, fortunately, I knew I needed to make that phone call, and I did. And the shock, I wish that we would have had FaceTime or all phone calls at that moment would have been video conference, because looking back on it now, I would have loved to have seen probably what I imagine now to be a horrific looking face on this therapist's when I called and he answered the phone. it was just silence on my end for it seemed like eternity before I could actually get the words out. And I finally got the 2 words out after I think realistically it was only about probably 20 seconds. I finally said, "Help me." And I know there's people say this all the time. Those were the 2 most important words that I ever got out of my mouth to this day. Is help me. God knows it wasn't I do. But, so gotta inject humor in this. But I got those words out, and he finally struck up a brief conversation with me, finding out who I was and what I was going through. We set up a appointment, and then the second hardest thing that I ever did was showing up to that appointment. I wanted to blow it off so bad that day, and it actually took me, which I'm not proud of this, having a drink before I left my house to go to it. And I'm glad that I did that. I'm glad I made that phone call. I'm glad that I showed up at this therapist's office and had this appointment. For some reason, and this is another thing that'll probably mostly resonate with the older audience here. I had always envisioned going to a therapist. As I walk into the door, there's going to be this big roaring fireplace going, a leather couch that he tells me to lay down on, and then he's sitting in this big wing chair smoking a pipe and having me just like crying, talking about all of my problems and this and that. And once I get my problems out, he's like, you know what, screw this. And he just grabs his couch and he's like, I'm done. I'm walking out of here. I don't need to hear that. But it wasn't, man. It was 2 people, 2 guys having a conversation just like you and I right now. And I think more people need to realize that that's what therapy starts out as, is just a couple people having a conversation. And if therapists, I say they're like a pair of shoes. They're not one size fits all. If you go to a therapist and you have a conversation with them and you don't feel comfortable, then go find another one. If they don't have all the tools that are normally used traditionally to help first responders or anybody process their traumatic events that we've witnessed. And when I say that, one of the things I'm talking about is EMDR, the eye movement desensitization reprocessing. Find another one. Find one that works for you and that you're comfortable with. Fortunately for me, I was very comfortable with this guy, and he had a lot of stuff to truly help me with. And it was a great interaction, and started getting therapy on a regular basis until, unfortunately, after a little over a year with him, he had a tragedy within his practice, and the practice shut down. And I was left without a therapist. And then trying to find that right fit that I just spoke about afterwards was extremely difficult for me, to find somebody that was familiar with first responders, because we've all had, throughout this, when I was looking for one, I had an experience, and I hear a lot of people out there, first responders, that have had likewise experience where you go to a therapist and they're not familiar with first responders. We start sharing a lot of the stuff that we're exposed to, we see, we do, and they literally start crying. I experienced that when I was looking for a new therapist. And it's a very awkward moment when you have that happen. And all of a sudden you turn into the therapist and start helping them. But yeah, just know, for anybody out there that's wants to get the help and process things, You need that fit that you are comfortable with, and they have to, the therapist has to be comfortable with you too. And because if you're not going to be completely open, honest, and candid with your therapist about what you're feeling and experiencing and going through, then they're not going to be able to truly help you until you can fully open up. And I finally did get to find the right fit for me. And this therapist actually was the one who introduced me to the EMDR I just spoke of. And that made a hell of a difference for anybody out there that's not familiar with it. I kind of dumb it down in, I was going to say, dumb firefighter terms, but I dumb it down for all first responders, just do it in common language. Because one thing I don't like personally is when we get a lot of doctors or therapists or counselors that start telling us stuff, and they're talking like way over our head, stuff that we can't fully understand or grasp. But so what it is when we get experience to these things, it gets filed away in the filing cabinet, like right here, we'll just say in the front of our brain. But when you have the EMDR, what it does, it reprocesses it. And in theory, what it does, it just refiles it from the front of the filing cabinet to the back of your filing cabinet. It doesn't brainwash you or remove your thoughts or feelings or anything like that, but it just kind of tucks it away. And it's a really good process that I found works for me. And I've been doing that for quite a while, and I was doing really good. Actually, started going around speaking at conferences, sharing my story, and symposiums, and with other departments and agencies, and was doing really well. And we had another very horrible call in March of 21 that bothered me, even though I was in therapy. I was still having a hard time processing it. And as we were coming up on the 1 year anniversary of it, March of 22, I started getting a lot more anxious, having a lot worse flashbacks, harder time reprocessing the call, and just getting everything under control. And that dark place that I was in a couple years earlier, I fell right back into it. It was much darker this time. I couldn't control it. I was going back to my vices that I had, and I wanted things to stop. I was done. I was over everything. I wanted life to stop. When I say I wanted things to stop, I just wanted these visions from this call to go away. And I didn't realize at the time that it wasn't going to stop my pain or anything. If me taking my life wasn't going to stop my pain, all it was going to do, and I realized this after the fact, was all that my suicide attempt, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but a lot of suicide attempts, it just doesn't stop the pain, it passes it on. And I'll get to that in just a second. But on the morning of March 16th, 2022, I got off shift at the firehouse, and I drove straight home. I didn't say anything to anybody at the firehouse that morning. I just I did give a quick turnover to the oncoming officer. And usually I would sit around and have some coffee with my crew that's going home and the guys coming in, just socialize and everything. I just walked out of there like a zombie. My mind was made up, set. I was determined to end my life. And got just about home, pulled over probably about a half a mile away, and looked at my Ring doorbell camera. And I waited until I saw my wife and my son leave the house, because I didn't want any interactions with them or anything. I just wanted to go home and do this. So once they left, I went home. I had my note written, and I had a whole bottle. I think it was almost 50 that were still in there of Xanax. I took the Xanax, and I don't think I quite finished a fifth of bourbon. And next thing I know, I remember very vaguely interactions at my household. One of the guys from work showed up, and the neighbor, and then the fire department was there, and the medics. And next thing I know, I'm waking up in the hospital. And this is where the whole thing comes into play. What I said about I wasn't stopping the pain, I was passing it on, because when I woke up, my wife and my son were by my side, and my mother joined them within a few minutes, showed up there, and I saw the hurt and the pain was all over their faces and in their hearts and everything. And it's really that resonates with me wholeheartedly. And I'll never forget when my eyes first opened up, and I saw. I mean, I was connected to machines and stuff like that, and saw that, and I'll never forget it. And I know they won't either. I know I traumatized them, and it was an experience. I think we have, as a society, a lot of work we have to do for mental health for everybody, and the care and facilities. I ended up spending 4 days in the hospital, and it was very eye opening to me. That whole experience that I had. You and I had a conversation earlier where we started talking about an organization. A good friend of mine, after my suicide experience, he told me about a organization called Save a Warrior. They started out in California, but they are currently in Hillsboro, Ohio, not too far from you guys. And my friend strongly encouraged me to reach out to them and try and get into their nonprofit organization for the help that I needed. And I did. I was immediately accepted into their cohort. And it was the end of April of 2022, about a month and a half after my suicide attempt, that I was at Save a Warrior, a 72-hour program. And it made the world of difference to me. And I am happy to be here today, and blessed and thankful. Every day I'm learning, and I'm working, and I am a huge advocate for the behavioral health now for our first responders, and trying to help people not to get to where I got and where others have been. And there's so much more. I mean, we can go so many different directions with our conversation right now, but that's kind of what got me to where I was, and started showing my rise that I really had after Save a Warrior last year. And I can't preach enough. I've learned down this road that I'm on, that there is a lot that needs to be fixed within the nation, but within each individual state. I'm finding out from talking to first responders all across the country. Every states have different problems when it comes to our coverage, and some states have post-traumatic stress as presumption. Some don't have any coverage at all. And even if something is presumptive that it came from the job, they will still fight you tooth and nail. And it's just very, very disheartening, a lot of the stories. And I'm sure people hearing my story right now, Some of it can be disheartening, some of it is inspirational. We're going to cover the whole gamut, but it's disheartening when I hear the stuff about what others like myself are struggling with, going up against state trying to get coverage for things that the job did to us. And there might be some people out there listening right now that still have that same mentality or attitude that, well, you knew what you were signing up for when you became a firefighter or first responder. And yes, I did, but it doesn't mean that I wanted this to affect me in the way that it had. I wasn't given the proper tools and the know how to know when and how to use those tools like I do right now. We just weren't given that stuff back in the day. So I think it's really important we start giving the people that are coming into the job, the career paths as first responders, the proper know how and know when to use these tools to better help themselves so they don't go into these dark places, or when they unfortunately do get dragged into these dark places, they know how to get the help and get themselves out. And it's just so often from politicians within the states all the way down to um, local politicians and people within organizations. It seems like how, um, and I'm not downplaying this, cancer has been for at least 10 years now, the really big, rightfully so, the really big topic in firefighting. And just recently, the hot topic is also coming up as first responder mental health and wellness. Well, it seems like a lot of like I said, the politicians all the way from state level down to local, and people within organizations are talking the talk because it is the hot topic. But when it comes time for all of our members, our brothers and sisters out there, they aren't truly walking the walk when it comes time to back us up, help us, and get us the help that we need and that we deserve. And that hurts, man. That truly is troublesome. And it's like Mike Tyson would always say, everybody thinks they have the answer to the test until they get punched in the mouth. And these guys they're eventually going to get punched in the mouth in the form of a member that has a suicide attempt, and they're going to be caught with their pants down. They're going to be caught off guard. And I'm not making light of this either. We, as first responder organizations across the country, we know how to put on a funeral. I wish we never, God, I wish we never had to put on another first responder funeral in the rest of our lives. I wish we didn't. But it's inevitable. We're going to. It's our job. But we don't know how to handle one of our own when they are struggling and have a suicide attempt and survive it. I'm finding there isn't a whole lot of SOPs, departments across the country. I'm finding there's not a whole lot of departments that have SOPs or ARs or rules and regulations or anything in place other than for the fire service. NFPA 1582 talks about suicide attempts keeping somebody out for a year. That's the only thing I can really find that addresses suicide attempts. And I've talked to a lot of people all across the country, and nobody can find anything right now. So I know some people like this saying, and some people are against what I'm about to say right here, but when it comes to suicides for first responders, unfortunately, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen within organizations. It's a matter of when, if. And that's what they don't like, when you leave it just like that as a blanket statement. I got to put this if in there to validate it. It's a matter of when it's going to happen if we don't start getting our stuff straight and truly advocating for our members, both past retirees, present, the new guys coming in, and the people that are going to be coming well after we're gone. We need to put stuff in place to help our members. Once we do that, we can start curtailing that number, the numbers of first responders. You and I were talking earlier, the number of line of duty deaths for firefighters last year was 96. The number of firefighter suicides last year was 80. And that's roughly with only 40% of them actually being reported and validated. So you can actually at least double that number to 160. We're losing more to suicide now than we are to line of duty deaths. And it's just not right, man. We can be doing so much more, but it's gonna take a lot more than you and I know there are so many other great advocates out there that speak about this. And I love all of those guys and girls and what they're doing and what we're doing, this movement that we're doing. But we got to take it to the next level. And I'm really trying to push this, like yourself and the brothers helping brothers and everything. The grassroots is where it's at. We can't lose sight of who we are and why we are doing this in our servant's heart. We came into this career path as somebody wanting to give back to the community and help others because we had true servants' hearts. But somewhere along the way, a lot of people are losing track of that servant's heart, and they don't want to serve us anymore and help us get what we need and where we need to be. So I think it's amazing what we're doing with a lot of these conferences and symposiums and just individual speakers coming to departments or whatever and getting it out there. And I really want to continue us taking it to that next level and going to our state representatives and whatever we got to do. It's just so important, just like the cancer. And I'm not downplaying that one bit. We need to elevate this right up there with those. And so I'm going to take a drink of water right now. I know I just went on my tangent right there.
I asked for it though, Chris. I mean, I gave you the platform. I said, just here, go, do your thing. And you certainly did your thing. I thank you for that. And there's so many directions I can go. And I'm sure the listeners are like, where is he going to go? What questions is he going to ask? The one thing that's been sitting with me, because again, there's a lot of similarities between you and me. And I want to ask you this. One of the things I yearn for is to be normal, to go back before all this chaos started, to just be that old, I guess actually young, energetic, happy go lucky individual. That guy is kind of gone and I miss him. Do you feel the same way?
I did. And I'll never discount anybody's feelings or anything. I think everybody's feelings are valid, and um, I say that because you and I have been through the same organization, Save a Warrior, and post Save a Warrior, and doing the work associated with that afterwards. I am who I was prior to all this. I am I'm the happy-go-lucky. Might not be as energetic as I once was, but I'm not as young as I once was. But no, I feel, dude, I feel so much better, so free. And one of the things, I know I'm preaching to the choir with you, but for those out there that don't know, is a lot of times we let the past really interfere in our lives and bring us down. As far as the future, we worry about the future, stuff that hasn't even happened or transpired yet. We don't even know if it's going to happen. So one of the things that I was just taught from that, and that I really try and live my life by now, which I catch myself sometimes not doing it, but I try and live more in the present and just be here, present for myself and present for everybody around me, but just to be in the moment and not worry about stuff that's out of my control. And man, I tell you, once I started putting that tool in my toolbox and knowing to do that, I look at things so differently now. And I mean, you know the term that we just need to clean up our side of the street. I need to be responsible for my side of the street. If somebody else has done me wrong, I can go to them and I can talk to them. But as long as I can kind of clean up my side of the street as it relates to that, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
And I feel by doing the work that I'm doing now, and like the work that you're doing, with everything that you're involved with the fire service, is just, it's amazing. It's our way of being us, being who we are, and giving back and doing the right thing. And to me, that's freeing and gives me um, that pep in my step back, and that purpose. I still have the purpose. I'm still active on the job. I still have purpose every day going out and serving the citizens. But this other purpose is just like, um, it's a breath of fresh air now. Just knowing that, and I'd like to go back to just one more thing. And I know, you know, that's a lie. One more thing, he's going to have like 500 more things. But I just want to state too that I have not stopped therapy. I will never stop therapy. I have a personal agreement with myself, and I've told my therapist, I was like, I'm going to go every other week, and that's what I still, to this day, every other week. And I told my current therapist, I say, hey, if I come in and I don't have anything going on, nothing has traumatized me or hurt me, we're just going to sit back and we'll just catch up on the past week and a half or 2 weeks and shoot the shit. And it works out great like that, because once you stop that cycle, it's hard to get back into it. And I don't want that to happen to me. And I recommend that to everybody. And anybody that's out there that's like hearing this, and this might be helping them encouraged to take that step to get therapy, I advise the same thing. Once you get in there and you start it and you find that right fit for you, keep it up. Even if you feel like you've been fixed, or you're in a much better place and you don't need it anymore, keep going. You could back it off to maybe once a month, but I would never, me personally, I would never go less than once a month. And I can't stress that enough. I think that's very important for us. I wish that, I know you guys in Ohio have collective bargaining. We don't have that here in Virginia. I wish we could do contracts here where we could put some kind of better mental health treatment to cover therapy sessions and everything. But for those of you out there that can do something like that, push for it and stick with it. So
Absolutely. No, a lot there too, and I'm with you as far as, I think forever and ever, I'm gonna be talking to a clinician. You know, right now it's still once a week, but, you know, I'm like you. I don't think it would be ever anything ever than every other week. And that's gonna be
Yeah,
forever, and that's just how it is now, and I realize that. That's why part of me, and kinda why I asked that question earlier. It's just there's part of me that still remembers when I didn't have to do everything I have to do now, and I miss
yeah,
that part, but I know this is just this is how it is. So,
yeah,
but with that being said, you mentioned earlier too, you talked about the tools for the job, and this job has changed a lot since 1993 when you started, or 99 when I started. Um, my gosh, especially regarding behavioral health. I know you feel like it's still, and I agree with you, it still has a ways to go. But there are a lot of things, depending on the fire department, depending on the state, even. There's a lot of things that are here now that weren't there before. Stuff like, and I know you can touch on all this stuff, but you know, actually getting our spouses involved, um, talking to the recruits about doing this stuff, you know, earlier to so where they know what they're getting into. At least they have an idea, an inkling, unlike you and I, and they're taught to actually talk about it, to get the stuff out of them, to not shove the stuff down and just like you said, wait for your bucket to overflow. You know, what are some other things that you've seen in your journeys that are just helpful for all this stuff to where the next generation hopefully doesn't have to deal with things quite like you and I did.
yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of the things that you said are starting to get implemented now. We're transitioning. I'm finding out from a lot of you guys um, from the old SISM um, process, which we're going from that to peer support, which peer support is technically it's just another branch out off of the SISM tree. Comes from the same, very similar background, but that transition I think is huge. Departments uh, instituting peer support, and regardless of if you still have SISM or peer support, it's amazing that you have something. We
Yeah.
really need something for our members. Excuse me. I have found out still through talking to a lot of people that there's many departments out there that have nothing, and that just blows my mind in this time and age where this is one of the newer hot topics. But the state of Virginia, several years ago, our governor instituted for all first responders across the board coming onto the job that they need to be given a mental health mental health training, awareness training. And it's not defined as one particular class, so it's kind of pick or choose, but they're getting something. But I was just having another conversation before you and I with somebody, and so many are just looking at that. This is what I'm hearing as okay, we did it, we checked the box, we gave this to our guys, and we met the criteria. But we really need to do more on that and build on it. How you were talking about when like the academies, the young people coming in, they need to be taught what they're going to experience, what they're going to see. Also, the family dynamic too. One of the things that I've been trying to help and implement within my organization or any organization when I go and talk to people, I try and push this to them and let them know the importance of it is I want to do like a family day when the recruits let them we'll just talk for fire since we're a couple firefighters right now, but once they learn their skills towards the end of the fire academy, let's set up something on a weekend, and their loved ones or significant other or whoever they choose can come and watch them do like a couple skills and stuff like that, put their gear on. But then I want to have, while you have all of them there, the first responder and significant others, I want to talk to them as a whole and share all this stuff, what they're going to see, what they're going to be exposed to, what they're going to feel. That way the loved ones too can know what to look out for, signs and symptoms and different things, because I might not know when to get help, but if my loved one would have had this training back in the day, she would have known that, oh, I think he's really being bothered by some of the stuff he's seen on the job. Let me reach out to somebody and try and get him help. And that just wasn't the case, but I really think we need to do more with that now. And I would love to see something like that implemented. My department, we talk to the recruits. Right now, we have like a 2-hour window during their academy to talk to them, let them know about our peer support, our chaplains group, just all these resources that they can utilize. And it seems to be working pretty good and helping out. But it's after that, you got to, because that's just planting a seed. And we got to plant a lot of seeds. And for every 100 seeds you plant, you might just get 1 or 2 that actually blossom. But if you keep planting these seeds, some of these guys are going to start coming to you and be like, oh, I remember Captain Moore when he came and spoke at my academy and told us about mental health and everything. And I'm going to reach out to him. So it's planting those seeds and making that difference. One other thing that I would like to see us do, I know there's several departments, probably dozens across the country, that are already doing a model similar to this, but it's making those bonds and relationships with therapists and counselors. And I think one of the best ways to do that is, if not fully embedding them within an organization, doing it partially. And when I say embedding, have them come and do ride-alongs, hang out at different firehouses, and just so our guys and girls get comfortable with them, and they're learning more about us, but in the same time, I mean, us firefighters, we're sizing up everybody. Wherever we are, we're at Applebee's or whatever, we're sizing up the people coming in the door or whatever, but we're going to be sizing up those therapists or clinicians as they're embedded with us and riding along. And I think that's a great way to form that bond. We might not need them right that moment, but it could be a shift later, or it could be a year or so later. You'll remember, you're like, oh, I had therapist Jane Doe. I remember she rode with us not too long ago, and I'm going to reach out to her now. That's another seed that we can plant within our agencies to have as a tool for our first responders. Because God knows, for us firefighters, we save the world's problems. We solve them all and save everything at the kitchen table. So imagine a therapist sitting down at the kitchen table with us while we're breaking bread and just solving all the world's problems and all the department's problems and everything. Just learning more about us, and then when they start sharing things too, I think that would be a really excellent thing.
Just kind of piggyback on that. I was able to bring in a clinician to do, I guess, essentially a checkup from the neck up with all the members involved. We ended up getting a grant after our mass shooting in 2019 to use for health and safety, and I was able to talk the union into doing that and bringing the therapist around, and I think part of it being the fact that she was kind of endorsed by the union was helpful. There's trust where I'm at with the union, not necessarily as much with the department, unfortunately, but with the union, definitely. So we brought her around, and the whole idea was I really didn't think a lot of people would actually talk to her at the firehouse. We took the apparatus out of service. Everybody had an opportunity to talk. I thought people would would basically go in there and say, "Hi, I'm good, thanks," and I was okay with that because I knew that the therapist was going to give her card to them, and I actually thought that what would happen is, as soon as she left, they'd go in their bunk room and text or call and say, "Hey, I really would like to talk to you." And I thought it would open up the window to everything, I guess the doorway really to that way. But in actuality, a lot of my members actually took the time and talked. And there was, and I forget the numbers off my head, but a lot of them had, first of all, never seen a clinician. And a lot of them did get referred, whether it was to her or another program or whatever it may be, they did get referrals. And I think the department is that much better because of that. And just like you said, later on down the line, maybe they're okay right now, but if something happens later on, they have a bad run, relationship problems, whatever it may be, they know that clinician, they met that clinician, they're not scared of that clinician, and maybe it'll be that much easier to make that phone call, which you alluded to earlier was hard to make. And I've
Yeah.
I've made that I've made those phone calls before too. And it's the heaviest. Your phone is never heavier than at that very point when you have to press that green button to call.
Yeah.
So trying to just break down those barriers and make things as accessible as possible and easiest, um, that's the key to wherever you're at.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's one. I keep going one. But just another thing that I hadn't really, or we haven't touched on yet. I know we did personally before we started the the podcast here, but is the whole family dynamic. I know I did talk about the eggshells of my family and everything, but the traumas that we're exposed to and what we bring home, it devastates a family if we don't treat it. And when we're talking about us finding therapists and therapists working with us and the right fit, I think it's an excellent idea that we do the same for our significant others and even our children. They're probably going to need to go to a therapist to understand fully what's going on with us and to get help as well. I almost made it my entire career without joining the divorce club. And unfortunately, my marriage couldn't survive it. And it is at no fault to my ex-wife. Um, she she was amazing. She stood by my side for a long time with a lot of the stuff that I was bringing home and my actions and everything. And she was a blessing. She helped out a lot, but eventually things do get. I know marriage is supposed to be when we do our vows till death do us part and everything. That's unfortunately um, that's not always the case, and that wasn't the case in my marriage. And my marriage ended. Um, like I said, at no fault of my wife's. I will never, or ex-wife's, never speak bad about her. And it just the post-traumatic stress, not only does it get the better of me and us that have it, it gets the better of our families at times. So it cost me a lot. We do have a amicable relationship still, and we have both since moved on. And I am, like I said, when we were talking earlier about how to get back to where we were before everything, I am free all of that stuff now. I'm living my best life. I know you've seen some of my social media stuff, and people that follow me on social media see a lot of my um, videos and things that I post where I am advocating for mental health and wellness for first responders. But um, you'll see me posting from the beach talking about it or whatever. But I'm
Yeah,
truly,
yeah, I get jealous of that, by the way.
yeah, I'm going to be sure you get those and see those when it's minus 20 out in Ohio and you have like 50 feet of snow or something. So But no, I'm truly, regardless of what happened in my past, because like we said, or I said earlier, the job doesn't define me. My past, regardless of what it was, doesn't define me either. Sometimes we do have to hit rock bottom because you can build a hell of a foundation off of a bottom full of rocks. So what I did, I hit rock bottom, then I just built up from there. And the other analogy that a lot of people use is the phoenix is rising from the ashes. And man, I get goosebumps when I say all this because I'm so happy and everything. But that's where I'm at, man. I've risen and I haven't stopped. I'm going to keep on rising. I'm going to keep on going on these tangents and advocating for first responders everywhere at every level that I can. And I won't stop to my last breath. I don't want to, well, I will say that I will never fall down to the depths where I was before. Are we, or am I going to have setbacks? Absolutely. There's going to be setbacks. We're only human. There's going to be things that set us back and that still bother us or affect us. But the difference is now is that I have healthy coping mechanisms. I not only have tools, somebody didn't just say, hey, here's a tool. Imagine at the firehouse, if somebody, your very first time ever, you didn't know what anything was and no experience. Somebody just gives you like a set of irons. Like, here, you don't know what to do them, how to use them to force a door or whatever. It's no good to you. So not only do I have the tools, somebody gave me the tools. I have the know-how to use these tools. But more important than both of those two things is knowing when to use those tools. So I quickly now recognize when I'm starting to go into a funk and slip back into rackets or whatever, and it gets corrected quickly. And never again.
Yeah. You mentioned spouses. I'm still married. And that is it's been a lot of work that's been put into that because I've also like just everything I brought everything home and eggshell everything. Again, a lot of parallels. What I was able to do that I think was helpful um is I did start talking about things with her. And then I also started including her in my conference going and doing stuff like the bridge retreat and Ohio Assist and like from that she gathered like she realized that I mean I am a jerk, but like I don't necessarily want to be a jerk. Like there's a lot of things that this job has done to me and the way I act is because of that. But having her have that understanding has been truly amazing, and it's been significant enough to where like this year's conference in Exotic Beaver Creek, Ohio, October 25th to 27th at exoticbeavercreek.com. That's not a porno site. That's actually our website we bought, but I digress. The last day, Nami is going to be there with Dr. Minda O's as well, and they're going to do the spousal training. They're going to talk about all this stuff. So I mean, it's already impacted me enough to where I told Nick like this is a good idea to do at our conference, and he was all on board on that too. Um, so that's going to happen there. But that's if you're not doing that already, if you're not bringing your spouses to events and to learn about this stuff and to actually get in your head and understand why you do what you do, telling you it's helpful if you're able to do that. If they gain that understanding, it's going to make things so much more easier because they understand your why. They understand why you sit with your back to the wall looking at the door. They understand why you're always just hyper vigilant and I'm paranoid about my kid crossing the street still. I mean it's I can't stop that stuff. That's just how my mind acts now. But there's reasons why I feel that way.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I talk about also. I just point out, and everybody gets a good chuckle out of it when I do my presentations, is I'll show a couple pictures and talking about the hypervigilance. And one is inside a restaurant, and it's a table there, a round table. I was like, where would most of you guys sit? I bet you it's probably, and I point out a chair that's sitting on one end of the table. It's a circle. It does have an end,
Yeah.
but sitting there where you can see everything in front of you in the entry and exit. And everybody's like, yeah, that's what we would do. I was like, that's what all the cops in the room when I speak to them would do, is sit there and do that. The firefighters also were hypervigilant, but my firefighters also would be looking up at the sprinkler fire suppression system if there's anything in there. We'll be looking at other means of egress. And then I show another one of it's a picture of the firehouse. Everybody's backed in. I was like, I don't know why the hell we do it, but we everybody when I talk, they relate to it all. They're like, oh yeah, we all back in too. It's like maybe we like sitting in our cars that way before we go in. We get to see everything, the big picture of stuff or whatever. But we all have that hypervigilance, and we can learn or need to learn to better manage it. We're always going to be hypervigilant. We're always going to be on the lookout, on the ready, and everything. But we can't let it control us. And I think for so many of us, and myself, for so many years, it was always a overwhelming sense of that hypervigilance that I let control me, and I don't let it fully take over my body like it used to. And my therapist, when I first started going, always talked about my shoulders were always up here because I'm like always just so tense and couldn't get relaxed and everything. But now it's just I'm relaxed. I'm still always scoping, scanning things out and all, but it's just one less thing that I try and let bother me. And I don't know how to work this into our conversation right now, and it might sound kind of awkward in the podcast, but either if you can check your cell phone right now, or I can just outright say something. I sent you a message. My battery is getting really low, and I don't have the charger accessible right this second.
Oh, see. I had it on Do Not Disturb.
I
Man,
saw that.
I've got all sorts of wow. People like me, or they want money or something. Why don't you let's wrap it up. Let's you told me before, you gave me some numbers of all that stuff, but do your final, you know, slide.
Yeah. So one of the things I told you that I always do, and people that follow me on social media, is I started at my first conference where I presented in the Dallas, Texas area in 2020. I wanted to put my personal cell phone number up on the very first slide and let everybody know that's what it was, and that they could reach out to me for anything. If they had just regular questions or were struggling with something, I always give the disclaimer. I know you and I talked earlier about disclaimers from organizations and stuff like that. I don't give the disclaimer that my thoughts are my own or anything like that. Although they're not the thoughts of my organization or department. They are my own personal beliefs and thoughts, everything that I'm saying here. But the disclaimer that I always give everybody with my phone number is that I'm not a clinician, not a therapist, and God knows I am sure as hell not a doctor. But what I am is I'm a fire captain, I'm a colleague, I'm a friend, and most importantly, I will always listen. That's words that I'm putting out there now. I will always listen. If you're struggling or hurting or going through something, and you need to pick up the phone and just reach out to somebody, and you don't want to call a therapist just at that moment, or you don't know who to call, you got my number. And even if you're not struggling, you just want to call and bounce things off of me for your agency to better help you guys out, or whatever it may be. It's my own personal number. And you actually alluded to it earlier. That cell phone doesn't weigh 5,000 pounds like we think it does at times of hurt and pain and trauma in our lives. Pick it up, use it, shoot me a text, give me a phone call. When I started this, or the idea of it back in 2020, I was kind of told that I was crazy, that I'm going to get telemarketers calling me about my car's warranty and all that. Well, hell, you guys got all that, not me. And I was like, you know what? I don't care if I'm getting people calling me from all across the country for just stupid stuff, spamming me. That's all fine and dandy. I'll deal with that. I'll accept it as long as I can just reach out and connect with one person. To this day, I am 1,000. We just talked about the Rain Man thing. I think it's 1,562 people have reached out to me and have reached out to me either by text or phone. And I always ask everybody if I can keep in touch with them and do buddy checks. And nobody has told me no once. So I reach out for my list just randomly, weekly, and just shoot people just that message, because I think that connection right there is huge. You never know what somebody's experiencing or going through from day to day, and they could be having a rough moment, could be having an awesome day. But if they're having that rough moment and just so happen out of the blue, they receive a text from me, it could change things. And I truly believe in that and believe in karma and everything. And I know a lot of good things are coming from this, and I never would have imagined when I first decided to put my number out there. It's not just out there on when I speak at conferences, it's out there on my social media. I blast it out there. I want you guys to have it. 757-536-3373. Call me for anything. I would much rather love to talk to you and have a conversation than to hear.
Oh no. Well, but Chris said that his battery was dead, and I'm glad that he actually was able to get that whole number out there. So we were wrapping up anyway, but once again, Chris Moore, Captain Chris Moore, also known as Chuck 3, and he's just going to be texting me like, "Oh no, my battery's out." But we were about to wrap it up anyway. So with that, if you need anything, call Chris. You can call me too. 937-604-3611. So, and with that, I'm done. I'll talk to all of you guys and see you all next month. Take care until then.